Sir, this is about your book on nationalism without a nation. So could you talk about the responses, the author and the book, both of them, how they were received? Because that has been a landmark book in this century. It has been a biggest intervention which it has made in the social sciences, and I don't think any other books which could be in that powerful mode to intervene in social sciences with that powerful language. So could you talk about that book? And
I don't know. I mean, you are using all superlative terms to describe the book. It is now nearly 25 years since the book came out. Some 20 reprints have been going on, more than 20 reprints have been going on and all that. As far as I am concerned, it looks to me that I did receive as much recognition I should be having. From an outsider, I mean, sympathetic outsider's perspective may be that it didn't sort of have a breakthrough in the studies and all that kind of thing. But at the student level, I have been received it very generously and very kind of sympathetically, and they all throng me to listen to me and all that. And when they listen to me, they feel thrilled to buy the book, and when they buy the book, they want to come and listen to me and all that. There is some kind of rapport established between me as an author and the students as the audience participants. But beyond that, I didn't expect anything, and also I am being called to various places, mainly on the basis of that book only, to continue to deliver lectures and so on in various aspects of the problem. But beyond that, I didn't actually expect anything more than that. For this reason, the reason of my having identified the problem of the country. See, since there is no nation that has come about through the nationalism, it's not only that the knowledge on concerning nationalism and nation will be defective, but all the other organizing fields and spheres and activities and issues and problems will be affected seriously by this fact that there is no nation today. There is no nation today. One of the main objective of the book is to find out a kind of, the nodal issue or the spine of the country's problem with which most other problems are united. You see, that is a fact that we are not a nation. We are not a nation, or we are not in any way becoming a nation, as the earlier nationalists thought that we are a nation in the making and all that. We are not, particularly the last 10 years or so has made it very clear. It is becoming what we call degenerating from year to year in all the spheres, new spheres, and old spheres becoming worse than the earlier ones and so on. When there is the core issue is not solved, all the other issues connected with linked with that issue or peripheralized by that issue, all will be only like this or even more, even worse than this. Therefore, I mean, in academics, academics in India is mainly a large extension of the government of India, particularly social sciences. Social sciences, they take for granted everything done by the government of India, categorization by the government of India, and kind of, they give clue to how to understand and what is the perspective to understand various issues. They all give them. And that is it is those perspectives, values and frameworks given by the government of India have been taken over by the academicians and justify them and pacify the people has been most of their function. I mean, I'm not saying that the whole thing is like that. There have been individuals, but by and large it is only like that. That being so, their best strategy would be to ignore the book. And it has effectively been ignored in that sense. But then it has also made inroad into several understanding of nation, understanding of nationalism, and so on. This is the first work of a student of sociology in India. Earlier it used to be what you call political scientists or historians and so on. They take most of things for granted. Why do you call a particular movement a nationalist movement? Because they call themselves a nationalist movement. So there's no criticality involved in this. Because they call themselves nationalists, they are called a nationalist movement and so on. But sociology, it is sociology which brought in certain amount of criticality, asking the basic question, what is a nation? What is a nation, and what is the relation between nation and nationalism? Is it automatic relation, or possible antagonistic relations also could develop, and so on and so forth. That way it opened out a kind of a little newer avenue that is sort of percolating in several areas. It is in a smaller way. Some major historians like Sumit Sarkar has recognized that all the times of earlier works on nationalism has gone, that now Aloysius has come out with a different thing that is more insightful and so on. Yes, he has casually pointed out it in one of his writings in that, seminar thing. So I think overall I don't have much to complain against. Given the fact, I don't expect these academics to be anything more serious or very different from what it is.
So, where did you, firstly, when you write a book, how did this book came about?
It originally what I had thought was that I will review nationalism books written on nationalism.
What were you doing then? Could you
in my MPhil? In my MPhil, okay. I thought I should do the review of nationalism in MPhil, and PhD I'll do some work on nationalism itself.
Where was this?
In JNU. But then as I was doing my review, I realized I am deeply already into nationalism. It's not simply reviewing, but I am substantially reviewing the nationalist discourse, nationalist movement and ideology and all that kind of thing. And as a sociology student, I realized that what are these movements are struggling for, which the nationalists have rejected as social movements, not political movements. They are the only political movements, and these are the social movements. And combining together is what is called the nationalism. That insight is I got. Then I started doing the work on that. But it ended up as a serious work on nationalism itself, not merely a review of nationalist book. So that with that I also went down my PhD also. So that then this became a kind of famous, and then sort of.
Who was your guide?
Guide was Avijit Pathak. Avijit Pathak, my idea of choosing a guide is that someone who would encourage me and who would point out some difficulties in my writing rather than an umbrella type of senior professor who would guide me in my writing. I didn't expect any guide in that sense, but someone who would critique. And that job Avijit, I think, did fairly well. I should say, to be honest to him. He did well.
So I'm breaking your point to explain to a lay person. When you said that you were reviewing the books on nationalism, you saw there is one movement is here, and there was the movement. What are they fighting for? You were saying. So could you explain in layman's term what is that? For example, there was a.
You see, there is a lot of movements. In my book, I have casually reviewed some 56 movements across the Indian subcontinent. And curiously, what I found, all these movements were not connected with one another. They were all, each one in its own place as the regional.
Like Tamil Nadu.
Running the whole thing in Tamil.
So you can give some examples of that movement also.
Yeah, I mean, we had that original Ayatidasar's movements, and then earlier even, what you call that Vaikunta Swami's cult and Talapakattu movement, and in the north we have Vallalar movement and so on. And towards the end of that comes Ayodhya's thing and so on, and then Periyar comes, and you see, and then across the border in Kerala, I found more than Tamil Nadu, these fellows seems to have had a kind of concentric circles of movement. Beginning with Ayangali, and a number of them came up with the Ilavasivas, Narayana Guru and Sahodharanayappan and all that. And in the north, it is not also true that it's only in the south we had this movement. The north also had all these movements. In many places in the north, the problem of historiography is that they have not gone into this, but the history says that there have been movements in all those places. Chamar movement, and then Bhangi movement, Valmiki movement, and in Bengal, the Namashudra movement, and in so many movements in Maharashtra and all that. There are plenty of non-Brahmin movement in Maharashtra even before Ambedkar came into existence. You see, the point I am making is, there were simultaneously from the second half of the colonial period, that is after the British takeover, Parliament takeover, there have been movements all across. Some are small, some are big, some are very extensive, some are very narrowed, some are very intensive with so much resources, some others were not so much resources and so on. But the main point is, the thrust of all those movements were very similar to one another. How come that came? All of them invariably demanded participation in the new dispensation that has come about from the colonial people. They wanted education, they wanted employment, and they wanted political representation. All these are showing that democracy is emerging. And this democracy was emerging without the concerted action of all people. And though these people were all divided among themselves in terms of language, caste, religion, etc., etc., they all seem to have had a similar thrust, moving away from the old regime, which was supposed to be the caste regime and all that. From that only it became clear, that it is something, for example, M.N. Srinivas very casually mentions about these movements. It was as though they were occupying a prison house and they are breaking open the prison house.
That's how you refer.
Yes. And that suddenly struck me. This was the description of Bastille breaking open in the French Revolution. The prison Bastille was broken open, and then the whole thing got scattered. You see? That means the realization some new thing is coming into existence. What is that new thing? Some of them I have very clearly explained. Periyar has explained, and Ambedkar has explained, and certain other minor, Sahodharanayappan has explained what is coming new. But all the others also had an inkling of what is coming new. It's not anymore the old, it's the new. And that new was termed by Ambedkar clearly as a nation. Nation, what is a nation? Nationalism ought to be like this. So I, of course, being a student of sociology, tried to connect these two. And so what were these people who were doing, these nationalist people? They were working against them, preventing all their efforts to change situation in...
Examples?
All the social reform legislations were attacked by the nationalists. Child marriage, against women-related issues like divorce and Sarda Marriage Act, and property for women, and turning marriage into a contract, not as a sacrament like that, all that kind of thing. These people opposed. Their position was nationalist position to oppose social movements. And then, of course, that there is a group of historiographers termed as Cambridge historiographers. They have tried to point this out. All these people seem to be more against these movements than against the British. Then you find these people the people like Periyar and so on finding out constantly these two fellows were linked together, the two sets of elite, the British elite and the local elite. And this is pointed out also by Ramachandra Guha, Ranajit Guha of subaltern times. So it developed a kind of insight that nation is moving in one direction and nationalism is moving against that direction. You see? That is, then you try with a little bit of insights and read theoretical works like Ernest Gellner and Benedict Anderson and so on, and then try to work out a thing, and that book was the result.